This is Growth Guide, a podcast exploring the depths of curiosity, questioning everything in the name of growth. I'm your host, Brian D'Alessandro. Hari Kaur Khalsa is a Master Kundalini and Meditation Instructor. The thing about Hari's power is that I've never witnessed one so great, yet without having any airs about her. She's been practicing for over 40 years and running New York's beloved studio, Hari NYC The Treehouse. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Kundalini Yoga, you are in for a real treat. I remember when I first discovered it, and for me, it shifts mood, mindset, and energy faster and better than anything I have found that is non-psychotropic. Kundalini is so powerful that it was a technology kept secret for centuries. Hari was an instrumental part of the team that brought and spread Kundalini Yoga through the eastern U.S. Along with training countless teachers in her program, she has taught in hospitals and high schools to great effects. Hari also founded the Illumined Woman courses to empower women of all ages. She expertly curates wisdom that brings women healing, comfort, and transformation. She's the author of 2 books, A Woman's Book of Meditation and A Woman's Book of Yoga, Embracing Our Natural Life Cycles. Hari, so happy to be here with you today. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Welcome to planetary sunshine.
Yes, it is glowing. You're bathed in the divine light as it should be.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
You know, you've made a pretty profound impact in my life and introduced me to Kundalini Yoga, and I just want to first off thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a incredible combination of song and dance and celebration and deep, deep meditation and exercise. Very good exercise. All in one.
Yeah, and you've been at it for quite some time now. How did you originally find your way to Kundalini, and what attracted you to it initially?
You know, I'm in my 60s now, so nothing more that I like than to tell a story. And, today I was getting some body work, and because during a recent move, I'd hurt my shoulders. And as he was going through the different parts of my body, I said, "Oh, I remember lifting scuba tanks over there, and I remember moving boxes over here." And it's like the body does keep the score, and all of that was in my body. And I could feel it, and I could feel that kind of awareness and sensitivity. And I think that came to mind when you asked that question because uh, prior to doing Kundalini yoga, I tried some other forms of yoga, and I was a religious child, and mostly my religion consisted of chanting and singing and prayer. And so when I met Kundalini, it was like a combination of exercise and chanting and prayer. And I certainly had never seen them or felt them combined. And as a person who's very active, I'm very active physically. I used to teach scuba diving and go hiking and really throw myself against a mountain or a tree or whatever was there, and the ocean especially, to actually embody, my prayers and embody meditation physically was uh, like an extraordinary experience for me, a fulfillment of some longing, I think, because before I met it, I had had a stroke, a small stroke, and a near-death experience. And there's nothing that embodies you more than coming back from something like that, right? Coming back from something like that and being here and uh, that extraordinary experience, which it changed me when I did some Kundalini meditations. It was as close as I could come to being alive and vital and really present. And yet absorbed in this love, kind of love energy, love feeling that I had when I was young. And that was all about,
Mm,
the love of my grandfather and the wisdom of him and the chanting in the synagogue and um, just all that amazement and awe as a child. So when I did a meditation like that in Kundalini, where you're singing and you're breathing and there's music going on, it was a very unusual combination that I had never seen before. And I was instantaneously, there was a marriage. I've never actually realized it. Instantaneously, there was a marriage between my childhood and my adult seeking in a way.
mm,
And so they were both present at the same time while I was doing it. And that was, uh, a fulfillment on the spot, really. And it's funny, the first time after the stroke and I was getting back to life and living, and I was working at a retail store, I didn't want to deal with numbers or any kinds of, you know, I was in ad agency before that. So I just wanted to be something simple and physical. So I wasn't driving yet. So down the street from me was a retail store with great clothes for women and great jeans. And so I walked in and said, "Can I help?" And so I was steaming clothes, and that was just perfect. And folding and learning to fold just right, packing things, unpacking things, very simple things. And I went in one day and I just looked up, and the words Y was in one window, the letter, and O in the next window, G in the next window, and A in the next window. I had just met my husband, future husband, and he was taking me to Kripalu, but I didn't relate to it too much. And I just walked upstairs one day and went into a class that was Kundalini Yoga. And I was, you know, came back home, told my husband, and reached into a bag and he took out a book on it because he was an old jazz musician, not old, but he was a longtime jazz musician from Manhattan, well schooled in lots of that kind of new age spirituality, which I was not at all. And he said, "These are those people." And I looked at it and he said, oh no, this is it." And he was right. Uh, and he since we've enjoyed many years of practice. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, that initial experience you speak of where you just felt it and knew the connection was there. I experienced something very similar in one of your classes, where I mean, look, Kundalini Yoga, I knew nothing about it going in, and it was in a lot of ways really uncomfortable for me. I was getting out of my comfort zone. There was a lot of movement and some dance and singing, and while and as a somewhat neurotic New Yorker dealing with being in my head, it really pulled me out of it. But beyond actually sticking through the class, what I remember most of all is the feeling afterwards of just buzzing and feeling as if I was glowing in light. And that is an experience I leave every Kundalini class with. And I have not, experienced another modality that does it like that. And I remember in I think it was that first class you spoke because you're always so cognizant of beginners entering the class and kind of setting the stage and giving a foundation. And you discussed how Kundalini was a technology. And you really unpacked it. And you also spoke to the history of Kundalini and how it came to the West. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it had a bit of a hidden area before it arrived here.
It did. And since those days when I spoke to you, I'm a bit of a nerd. Like, I like to study. So as I've studied Kundalini in over the past 2 years, especially, I came upon some very interesting, um, swamis and people from India who were teaching Kundalini. And one who was working with a therapist, I believe her name, Harrigan is her last name. And they wrote a couple of books that were about the actual spiritual transformation that the Westerner might go through in practicing Kundalini. I thought that, and the books are quite detailed. They're well done. And of course, love to read, so I like to, occasionally highlight something or read it over. And there was one sentence that had me understand why and how it came to the West and what was really going on with that. In that one line in that book, it was so amazing. It said, as part of the study of Kundalini, you've got mantra, you've got breath, you've got asana, you've got exercise, and then you have the mental framework, the wisdom, or the yoga of the mind. And then it said, like comment said, basically, Kundalini practice is by any means necessary. And that stopped me in my tracks. I realized that it was probably just a very revolutionary practice and not for everyone. And I understood why they protected it because it was dangerous. I understood it at that moment when I read those words. A lot flooded into me about my own practice and how powerful it is. So I think it came to the West in ways that could relate to us. And basically, one particular formula, it was being brought by, not mixed with, brought by a person who had a background of Sikh. And so that is the background of the word, the power of the shabad, the power of the sound current, and that is a major way into the spiritual experience. That, we've heard of the studies about water and vibration, and I think we can all agree that music vibration is huge right now as a spiritual practice, everything from gongs to songs. And so what's happening now is things need to happen fast for people, and music goes right in, goes fast. And when you link it with breath, when you have breath, intention, and sound, those three things together are a very fast recipe to have the possibility of opening to spiritual experiences and expanded states. And when you add some add some exercise and the circulation's up and the nervous system's a little more open, you kind of make yourself younger when you do that exercise. They're called rejuvenation exercises like Qigong. I'm also a Qigong teacher. And Qigong, these rejuvenation exercises that go deep to the nerves and the glandular system. When those systems become youthful, what does that mean? Open to possibility, not so set in their ways. A lot of possibility opens up, and then you start singing and moving, and you can see it seems all so simple, but just wasn't known, wasn't put together in that way where the practitioners were really allowed to write music. It was a little rock and roll. Look at this beautiful sunlight. It was allowed to expand into somewhat chaotic and extraordinary places.
Can you speak to you speak to the different physical movements and the hitting the glandular system or the nervous system. What I really enjoy about Kundalini is each of these different movements or sets of kriyas, and if you could explain that a little bit for people who haven't been exposed, that would be great. But I love how they'll target different things and sometimes align with other energies that are afoot.
Yes, one of the nice things is it's actually, when you're talking about the nervous system, and then you have the overlay of the chakras and the moon centers, these different, the story, I call it the story of the chakras and the moon centers, because it's a, um, it's a therapeutic application of spirituality and personal growth of life. And so when you have that context and you are working with different parts of the body, you're working with the memories, as I was saying in the beginning, when he was working on parts of my body, I'm there, oh, I remember lifting the tank, the big scuba tank. The body is intimately involved in our life. And in the industrialized culture, I think we had to forget about that for a while in order to move along to where we are now. And I think right now we're really interested in being more in rhythm with the earth, which means also being more in tune with our bodies, more kind to our bodies, more understanding of the human experience. And
Mm,
so I think that that is a big part of the idea of the glands and of the nerves. So that's like a layer that's deep. The glandular system is deep because um, it's like the juice of state change, the hormones. And so when you're talking the glandular system, we're talking about the hormones that make you smile when you see this light. They go like,
mm,
and all of a sudden your state changes. That's actually happening on a level in your glandular system. And we, of course, now you're interviewing me at what we hope will be the downside of the pandemic. And the nervous system that people are dealing with now has great challenges. And so there's lots of healing to be done about um, how we respond to fear and how we respond to each other now. We've been separate, and now it's time soon. I feel, I hope, for us to get back together, and that's going to take some kindness. It's going to take some allowing. There are many people with the nervous system quite shaky. So this is where pranayama and deep breath, patient breath practices, um, aerobic exercise to get the circulation, all those little parts that are included in Kundalini. One thing I will say that Kundalini Yoga really does partner with some kind of martial arts practice like Tai Chi or Qigong. I chose Qigong, a standing practice because Kundalini is so deep in meditation. So to have that standing practice is a perfect complement to the deep meditation. And together, I have found a lot of healing. And I've been really fortunate and honored to be in situations where not only I have healed, but others heal around me. And, healing is not curing. Healing means we still might have a disease or a challenge, but somehow that glandular system has given us love, the experience, the embodiment of love, and the embodiment of happiness, even in the midst of these things. And that is really, uh, we can't stop the shadow or the light, but there takes some strength and consistent healing to dance with both, right?
absolutely. And can you give an overview? Because I remember you telling me once that Kundalini was the most widely practiced form of yoga in the world. Yet in the West, we've clung on to the vinyasa practice, which is very, um, young energy, very much about that force and pace and just moving, moving, moving. Um, can you give an overview of what the structure of the class looks like? Because it's really unique.
I, if I did say that it was the most widely practiced yoga, um, what I would temper that by saying when yoga moved into the West, it has become, or other places besides India, which is it's hard to know because Kundalini yoga in India they're all merged, they're all merged together. They're all one. It's only when it came west that things, you know, we have there's this habit of following a person. You see, so that's where everybody had their own healing,
Mm.
right? And so they taught what they knew, and people made those into schools of yoga, right? But really, they all fit together pretty well. Um, I will say that Kundalini is very popular overseas. I think because it has that experience of both the sound, the breath, and the exercise together. And also, there's no separation. It really does want people to be together and create a group vibe. And that being a higher on the list than physical stretch or something like that is that we get together and we sing. And it comes from if you get together and sing with right relationship and right intention, everybody can benefit. And you can create something called group love, group consciousness. And that's when we relax around each other. And I would say that's, a really good feeling. Don't you think when people are
Hmm.
together and yet they're relaxed, there's less fear of each other.
Yeah, and that challenged me. I'm an introvert, and it's very easy for me to just stay focused on what I'm doing and minimize those connection points. But I really, really love that about Kundalini. You're provoked to engage with each other through some of the kriyas or exercises. But then after class, everyone's invited to usually have some tea and just take it slowly before you get out into the world. And I had been grappling with this challenge around, vinyasa based yoga, which I practice. And you cultivate this amazing energy in the room, which you can all feel. And then everyone just goes namaste and they go about their day. And you just feel it kind of dissipate. But in Kundalini, you stay together for a while, and it really facilitates some human connection beyond the practice, or maybe not beyond the practice. But it's a beautiful thing.
Tea and some kind of food is just it's just welcoming. It's just hospitality and humanity. And I think by any means necessary, somebody may have had a tough class. Let's nourish that with something um, often, a little sweet, but not too much, but a little blessing with a friend. And you don't have to be that knowledgeable and know that person. Uh, And as an introvert, I found this kind of spirituality to actually be very fulfilling because I didn't have to share much about myself. I could just be in the kind of vibe of it and have a little tea and and stay 5 or 10 minutes and then you're done.
We're talking about this, and it sounds so mellow and soft and gentle. Kundalini is one of the damn hardest practices out there, like physically.
Okay, you
And
caught me.
I laughed when you said, "Oh, yes, somebody might have had a tough class." Everybody had a tough class, and that's my favorite thing about Kundalini is its ability to just destroy the ego. It challenges it. It challenges your monkey mind, the mental, repetition. I remember in one class, you had us doing a kriya where we had our arms up, and I think we did it maybe for 7 minutes. And you were sure to remind us that the full length was 15 or 21 minutes.
Oh,
And
no.
so we're going like this for 7 minutes with our breath going. And you go through all the stages. First, you go through, this is ridiculous. What the heck am I doing? And then you start saying, oh my goodness, this teacher is evil. Like, this is not human. And then you just start to, then you might observe the room. Then you just get quiet and you break through. and you go through it, and then you start experiencing that pain. You go through the hardest pain, I mean, of something so simple, of your shoulders burning to such a degree. And then at the end of it, do you know what you said, Hari?
Oh no.
You said, "Congratulations, you did it. You can hold your hands up for 7 minutes." And it was just like a jab to the ego, where it was like anything that might have wanted to attach onto that accomplishment, it was beautiful because it was like, oh yeah, I just did one of the hardest things in my life, and there is literally nothing to show for it. And that's the beauty of Kundalini, or one of the beauties.
Wow. And we'd like to say we hope you get absolutely nothing from this class. You get nothing but your own like stimulation of that glandular system, that breakthrough. And so when you said it's really hard, my husband just gave me this. It's a gold medal. He gave me a gold medal for this year. Uh, and I thought I'd wear it for the
I love
interview
it.
because, yes, the practice does have big challenges, everyone. It does. It doesn't have to. And, I think one of the most important things is to know yourself and to know when you can do that and when you can't do that. And also, by any means necessary, means how can we learn to take care of ourselves? Like, really be kind and yet be in the space of possibility. How can we really be compassionate and yet break through our own, really negative frames of mind? We've discussed systemic racism this year. How deep it is. How do we break through that? Without being confronted, right? That's where all yoga really lives, at that very juicy space where we want to have the courage to break through that. We really want that courage. And so the yoga with the glandular system and nervous system is slowly building the capacity for that courage, for more life experience. Does that make sense? It's like you would say
Hmm.
building the capacity for prana, for containing more of life experience.
Yeah, it reminds me of this quote in martial arts where they say, cry in the dojo, laugh on the battlefield.
Wow.
And it's that notion, right, of cultivate this ability to stand in your power when you are facing those challenges out in the real world.
Yeah. This is very difficult. And then not only stand in the power, it's the power of love.
Hmm.
It's, power magnifies anything. So the idea is that you magnify love because we know it gets very dangerous when it doesn't magnify that. So this idea of laugh on the battlefield, yes, and laugh with love, laugh because of the cosmic love that is in you and the what appears to be the enemy
Mm.
as well. And how can you play both sides? Guru Nanak calls this the infinite game of life where it's win-win. How can we possibly hold that kind of a space? It's not easy, and I'll tell you that is I'm that's where I'm going, in my life
Mm.
is holding the space for that, for
Hmm.
win-win. What's that like? Certainly, it looks like you're losing sometimes, that's for sure. How can if you don't have a nervous system to sit and be there, it you'll fight to be right,
Hmm.
and there might not be the juice there of love. That's really where Kundalini lives. It's where martial arts lives. It's where all good spiritual practices live, is in that balance of the shadow and the light. When you get a little older, you see it more clearly. It's very, very interesting. You know, I recommend people practice something that makes them very happy and very strong. And I mean physically. Don't shy away from physical strength. But it's nice to mix it with spirit.
Yeah, and with Kundalini, that you really do get that full spectrum. And then one of the other parts of it that I want to speak to is the end of class when you are blessed with a gong bath. I think that was the first time I experienced a gong bath.
Yeah.
And man, talk about like just waking up every cell in your being and just I mean, I left my body for sure, but that can you talk about the gong bath and the function of it and because it's just such a powerful tool.
It goes back a long time, so but certainly has become popular now, right?
Mhm,
Yeah, it's very popular. The idea is that the vibration can go deeper than exercise. You can't always exercise your bone marrow, right?
mm,
So, along with mantra, gong is like the first strongest vibration that you can create is your own voice and your own internal voice. That will talk to your spirit and that will talk to your body very powerfully. Um, Next comes like music, gongs, things like that. It's often compared to that the gong is can be right after that because it's a neutral sound. Because if you have a symphonic gong, you have all the steps of the scales. You have all the little notes, right?
mhm,
And so it will hit all the different kinds of tissues in the body, all the different kinds of densities in the body, the liquid, the spaces, the the thicker tissues, the thinner, very, very subtle tissues. So a symphonic gong will, if played nice and lightly, will go in very, very deeply. And so the idea is that when it goes in deeply, you slowly can vibrate higher and louder and then let it come down. So you slowly train the nervous system to be like an ocean wave. Like, wow, 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 wow. Oh, it's getting a little scary. Wait a minute, the wave just resolved. I'm
mm,
okay. And so you're stimulating and letting go. You're stimulating and letting go. And so the idea is for the player of the gong to be able to help that gong get into the person's body to touch places that they haven't touched, which is why some people have dreams or memories. And also, it can get so beautiful, just so beautiful. And so you felt like you were out of your body, right? Because we were vibrating so much. So the
mhm,
feeling is very expansive, and that feels like you've gone beyond the bounds of your body because we're just molecules. So it just can vibrate right. The vibration could be right close to your skin as well as right under the skin. So when you're really relaxed, that could almost feel the same. This could feel the same as inside.
mm,
And so the gong can give you that kind of experience. It's very nice. When I was younger, I didn't love it because it was too loud. So I play a little softer, I think, than most people. But um, I'm very musical. So I think I do see everything musically. So I really want to respect the ears as well as everything else.
with those years, you've taken this, tool of Kundalini, and you've heard, challenges and plights out there, and you've brought Kundalini to a number of places that were really needed. You've done a lot of work with women and underserved communities. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I've been fortunate to when I started teaching, it was a long time ago, so yoga got very popular very quickly, so I had incredible opportunities. There was an organization in Boston called One on One, whereas people were um, coming from other countries to settle in Boston. They didn't know the language yet or anything, and they were just, especially from Cambodia. And you know that war was very brutal. And so the people coming, it's just so lovely. So I would meet with them and I would, sometimes teach them Kundalini yoga, even though we didn't have the same language, which was cool because I could just do and they would imitate, and it would help to relieve so much stress. And then they would feed me food that was so spicy that I couldn't do it, and then they'd laugh at me, and that's how it would go. I do a little bit of this, we do some English uh, learning, and then they'd feed me the spiciest food I've ever had in my life. I've also worked and mentored young women, and that was really a powerful time for me to be able to give back. As I struggled as a young woman, as a teenager, I was able to return and help and imagine myself and how nice it would have been to have someone to talk to. And it's still, it really touches me deeply to remember the women I met and how some of them are now returned much later to become yoga teachers. And that, uh, you know, it really was a powerful part of my life. I also taught at hospitals where people wouldn't be able to take yoga because Kundalini, we learned a lot about breath and prayer and meditation. So I had many students that had Parkinson's, were really on, leaving soon, like, making their transition and dying soon. A woman chose to spend her last evening alive at the yoga class.
Hmm.
And so that was such an honor. And of course, because we did so much chanting and singing, even though she was in a wheelchair and really couldn't communicate, you could see that that's where she said, "This is where I want to be," because she could feel the whole room was chanting and relaxing, and she could feel that. And imagine, having people sit around your bed looking, feeling sad, and this is your last time. So instead, she said, "No, no, no, let's go to yoga class." And so those populations didn't have much yoga because it was exercise back then, very little Kundalini. So I had many opportunities to help people with many different variety of illnesses, including some psychological illnesses as anxiety and depression. And as we did more research on Kundalini yoga in those areas, I've helped bring um, Kundalini yoga to areas like prisons and also, um, schools where it would not normally be taught. And this is a very big uh, mandate now, not just with Kundalini, with yoga in general. And I think we've spoken about this, you and I, that
Hmm.
a major researcher of the benefits of yoga and meditation, breath to help sleep and ease anxieties and actually help a person self regulate, have some agency over themselves. That really giving young people these tools, very simple tools of mindfulness, breath, the power of song, and the power of your words. Uh, that the goal of some of all of this research is to help bring it to young people because it will help them as they go through the challenges of their life. And who isn't challenged as a young person? I mean, remember being a teenager?
I mean, I think of what my life would have looked like if I was exposed to this practice, at that age, meditation, through the kriyas, the physical movements, and even the singing and dancing aspects, the mantras. It would have given me tools that I just didn't have. And for me, I ended up getting pretty angry in my teenage years, and I didn't have the tools to work with it. So I think it's a beautiful initiative. In fact, I'm helping to support an initiative that you're launching. Do you want to talk about that? Is that something we can
Yeah, sure.
put out in the open? Okay, good.
Sure, because I was talking about it to someone in my new hometown of Peekskill, New York. Okay, so I was teaching and mentoring some teenage girls. And uh, I tell the story over and over again. It's just so incredible. One of the students came to me, and her name was Sonia. And so if she's out there, I hope you connect with me. She um, came to class one. I was teaching at a high school, and she came to class and she said, "I have to tell you about a dream I had." And she said that her parents were separating, and she had a younger sister, and it was very stressful. And life felt extremely scary and uncertain. So she was only about 14, and her younger sister obviously was at least a year or two younger. And in her dream, the house was being engulfed in fires and flames. And she looked over, and the flames came in to the bedroom, and they were engulfing her sister's bed. And she couldn't get to her sister. And she sat up in bed, and she put her arms up like this and started doing breath of fire, which is a breath we do.
Mhm.
It sounds like, and she made herself big. And she said, as I was doing breath of fire, the flames disappeared. And I was able to be with my sister, and the fire completely disappeared. And so what I said to her, I said, "You are now a Kundalini yoga teacher." And she said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." And I gave her some exercises, printouts of exercises and meditations. And I said, "Why don't you share this dream with your mom and dad and ask if you can teach them some of these?" And she said, "Okay." And she became a yoga teacher for her parents.
Mhm.
And they all did yoga together, and it made a difference in her life. And very powerful. So I know that little things make a difference with uh, young people and with moms and dads too, and elders. Small things make a difference. And so the idea of it's called Seva in the city. Seva means selfless service, and that's that the um, when you feel the call to help, that I want to make it easier for people to help. And so, especially yoga teachers who are trained in these very simple things that people can do and that will make a difference. And so, through this little nonprofit that we're nourishing along the way, I hope to be able to bring these simple practices to families and children. And not only these simple practices, but these simple practices help us become more kind. So, in the end, it's about kindness so that your nervous system can calm down. You can have more tolerance and you can find kindness and you can find clarity and you can find truth and you can find the strength to go against injustice and to become, you can state your truth. So we'll do social justice training and nonviolent communication training. And it's just being born now. Thank you for sharing it.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things about how it's being born, I think, is important too, because it's pretty empowering. A lot of times when we think of starting a new business project, enterprise, or nonprofit, whatever it is, it can get very overwhelming and very big very fast. And in reality, it doesn't start there. It shouldn't start there. So starting small, and you had said your husband gave support there on this idea too, to start small, start with yourself, just start bringing it. And that notion of bringing it locally into the community that you're living in that needs that, that's enough. And if we're doing that in different areas all around, it starts creating this network and it spreads out. And so that's such a beautiful approach that anybody can replicate in whatever field of service they want to
Yes.
offer.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea was seva is selfless service. And there's so many yoga teachers now and that know a lot of these little and big and powerful techniques, and to help them even be around people, if whether they're helping to feed people or they're helping to care for pets. It really doesn't matter what they're doing out of the kindness of their heart. They carry with them, and these techniques, they carry with them this ability. And so we can bring more kindness into this world. The idea is that this will happen all over the place, and it already is happening. And we just want to make it easier for it to happen too. That'll take a little bit of planning, but to make it easier for people to do these things because life is stressful and sometimes, oh, I'd like to do something, but I don't know where to go, what to do. So we want to find ways to make it easy.
Yeah, and with the approach you hit on earlier of, finding these win-win ways of engaging, that's a way. So all of a sudden, if this organization is sharing its learnings, its information, its toolkits, if everything becomes collaborative instead of competitive, then you're taking a huge step forward in making it easier for everyone. And I think that's a big part of this transition we're experiencing.
Yeah. People do want, especially now, we want to be together, whether it's on Zoom or in a group, in person. How do we tap into the power of, there's 36 million plus people practicing yoga, looking into how the body mind sciences work. It soon to be, I think it's predicted, what do we say, 50 million people that
Yeah.
have tried it or used it or techniques. Doctors share it. I know they do. There's now something called YCBT, which is yoga-based cognitive therapy that uses practices of Kundalini mixed with cognitive therapy to help teens and adults with worry and anxiety. So these are slowly, we are making huge steps. And so as this opens up and there's more openness, I think that we'll really be able to help each other calm down when we need to. So take a deep breath is going to really mean something, and your mom said, take a deep breath. Well, for me, I knew how to do it. I did pranayam when I was younger, but not in a great way. Like, it was the way I learned how to have agency over myself. So if I didn't, I would actually inhale, put my hands like this until I passed out. I'd
Mm.
actually pass out because I was longing for this agency of my own body, of my own space. So if I couldn't get it, I would just, well, this is the only way I can get it. So it was a pranayam, but I don't recommend it. And a little bit of cold water took care of that pranayam. But it would have been, we can now say, here's the way you do take a deep breath and safely and change your state. You can do it. And so rather than that being a joke, that's not a doorway into a person having a difficult time finding, some agency, some self-regulation with themselves as a child. Now we'll be able to see that and say, let's learn this. I think this is miraculous for humanity.
Amazing, Hari. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we close out?
Sure. I would like to honor every single human being on planet Earth right now. Every single one, young, old. I'd like to give prayers to all the losses people have had and offer some hope and some kindness if I can to remember that, we are here together and that wherever you're at right now in your process through this pandemic, that I'm wishing you healing and a way forward. Perhaps you have some yoga or breath work available to you. You might know a friend who knows it. You can do a lot of stuff online now, as you know.
Yeah, where can we find your classes?
Oh, mine are at HariNYC.com. HariNYC.com. And right now there's so much, even in addition to that, find time to relax yourself and and be patient as we go through um, this new this new world that we find ourselves in together. I'm right with you. There's nobody who was left out of this experience. Not one of us was left out. And may we all just be offer some kindness and tolerance as we go through and create some unity and love wherever we can.
All right, Cara, thank you so very much. You
My
are
pleasure.
amazing.
And you are too. It's wonderful to be here, Brian.
Thanks for joining us this week on Growth Guide. A big thanks to our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Project New You. I'm a huge fan of their Nitrovite nootropic brain supplement. It's helped me to develop laser focus, a better memory recall, and motivation. Nitrovite has helped me in launching this podcast amongst completing many other projects. Visit growthguide.love/focus to learn more and use promo code GROWTH for 15% off. This episode is also sponsored by the upcoming film Thrive 2. This is what it takes. A follow-up to the 2011 hit Thrive, which is one of the most widely viewed documentaries in history with over 90 million views. If creating a better world matters to you, don't miss it. Visit growthguide.love/thrive. Make sure to visit our website, growthguide.love, where you can find freebies, exclusive content, and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. If you found value in listening, I'd really appreciate a rating on iTunes. I can't tell you just how important this is. Or spread the love. Tell your friends, your fam, heck, tell your spirit animals. And follow me on Instagram at growthguide.love. Be sure to tune in next week for our newest episode.